You may not know it, but if you've ever watched a detective film, you've probably seen Locard's exchange principle in action. Edmond Locard is sometimes known as the Sherlock Holmes of France. But Holmes was mere fiction. Locard was the real deal. The father of modern forensic science, Locard established the first police forensic laboratory in Lyon, France in 1910. Locard's principle seems simple. Every contact leaves a trace. But that simple idea revolutionized criminal investigations. It tells us that every perpetrator leaves something at a crime scene. Fingerprints, DNA, and hair, for example. But he also takes something from the scene. Blood spots, fibers from the victim's clothing, and particles of dirt, for example. When a match is made, the criminal is nailed. Today, Locard's principle is being used in all sorts of digital forensics investigations. Although there may not be physical contact between computers and other data devices, there will almost always be some evidence of digital contacts between devices and the content exchanged between them. Evidence of these digital contacts and exchanges has exposed scores of child sex abusers who thought that they had covered their tracks. Just when they least expected it, they were busted by Locard's principle in action. The World Wide Web has been good for humanity in many ways, but it has also spawned an eruption of the most evil of all evils, the sexual abuse of children, from infants to teenagers. The forces of good, law enforcement, public service organizations, and caring parents are in an endless race with this devil. The perverted perpetrators of these crimes against children are constantly developing and exploiting new technology to conceal their evil. No place in the world is immune. Traffickers and abusers crawl around in the digital undergrounds of the world's biggest cities, their well-tended suburbs, and the quiet of the countryside. The United States Congress and the Department of Justice use a broad coalition of public and private resources, known generally as Project Safe Childhood, to root out these perverted criminals. Because of this program, almost every day, some perp is arrested, charged, brought to trial, or convicted of crimes against children somewhere in the United States. So, how do criminal investigators, faced with criminal mazes and underground trafficking networks, find these criminals? Well, every law enforcement investigation begins with the detection of suspicious content, videos, images, or messages between people online referring to such material. Tips about suspicious content come from a variety of sources. Internet service providers and social media platforms, for example, are required to report suspicious material to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which in turn passes tips on to law enforcement agencies. And parents sometimes report on a child's troubling contacts that they've observed. Other complex data processing techniques can also capture online tips. For example, hashing is a process by which known images are converted into unique digital fingerprints. The fingerprints are then matched to material moving online. Image recognition is another law enforcement technique. Sophisticated algorithms trained to recognize specific features, can analyze online images and videos to determine whether they are criminal child sexual abuse material. Once law enforcement has confirmed that material or associated activity is indeed criminal, Locard's principle kicks in. Every contact between a creator, a distributor, and a user, or an exploiter and a victim, is going to leave evidence of the exchange. In some cases, investigators will use a warrant to either covertly observe continuing online activity, or they will seize a suspect's computer, cell phone, and other digital devices. When the feds confirm a suspect's criminal activity and arrest him, investigators may keep their presence quiet. They will secretly open what is known as a hub and spoke investigation. Using the busted suspect's identity, they will keep up his online presence, thus leading them to fellow perpetrators who contact him. This is what happened to Herschel Andrew Green and Richard Pavel, two men who were arrested in the District of Columbia and charged with distribution and receipt of child pornography. A search warrant served on an as yet unnamed third person turned up an unlocked computer. That computer was turned into a hub. The FBI then discovered spokes, separate conversations with Green and Pavel involving child sexual abuse materials. The two were busted, but as of this moment, the hub appears not to have been publicly charged. A very similar technique is the domino effect. The investigation of one perpetrator leads to the next, and the next, and the next. For example, the investigation of Victor Renato Blythe, a prominent psychotherapist in the District of Columbia, revealed his lewd conversations about children with a well-known realtor in Virginia, Christopher Dudley. Both were arrested in the summer of 2025 for child abuse offenses. Child abusers are also often nailed by their interactions with undercover agents or with online covert employees who are specially trained to interact with suspects on the internet. A Baltimore man, Andrew Juarez, for example, was led to believe that he was texting with a perverted mother who was willing to share her underage daughter with him. Travel for such purposes violates federal criminal law. Juarez traveled to an agreed meeting in a bar in the District of Columbia. He was surprised to find not a psycho mom, but DC police and FBI agents, and Andrew Juarez was busted.